Hi, I'm Lilia Lewis. Welcome to another edition of New Day, New Beginnings. Now, last week we started talking about adversities. We started to talk about how to handle them and how to overcome them. So let's start with what we said the definition was. And the definition was misfortune. I mean, that's what an adversity is. It's a misfortune. Oh my. It's a misfortune and it is something horrible that happens that we have no control over. That is an adversity because it throws us in a tither and we get all shook up and everything goes up awry. But there is a singular and a plural, and we said that last week as well. A singular means one incident. It could be a car accident or a loss of someone or a serious illness. Any of those things. So the plural of adversity, of course, is an adversities. And that definition is a state of serious continued difficulties. Now that might be a little bit worse, and then it may not. It just depends on the incident. So a plural could be, let's say you went for a walk, and while you were out there, you tripped and you sprained your ankle. So now you have your foot in a boot, let's say. And then the next day you're in the kitchen and you're cooking and you cut your hand. So now your hand is in a bandage. Now you got one foot and one hand. The kids are like off the rail, and you're trying to figure out what in the world is wrong with these kids. So then this is where one thing keeps happening after another. You can't even get yourself situated from the first thing before something else comes up. But today we're going to be going over that. The singular, the plural, the remedy, the solution, and us. So today we're going to be reading from the book of Matthew. The book of Matthew. And it's going to tell us about many adversities that Jesus had, as well as the adversities that the people he came in contact with had, because they had adversities as well. So let's go to, but we're going to, as we go to Matthew, I'm getting my Bible ready. As we go to the book of Matthew, we're going to think about their scenarios, but put our own situations in place of theirs. We're going to try it that way. Put our adversities into place of theirs, but we're going to learn how to use the same solutions that they used to handle theirs back then. We can use them same solutions today to overcome or handle our own adversities. Okay, so let's go to Matthew. And we're going to start in chapter 4. Got it right here. Get your Bibles out. Let's go to chapter 4. And we're going to start with the very first verse. Because the very first verse, it simply says that Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness for what purpose? To be tempted by the devil. Now, that in itself is going to be an extreme adversity for Jesus. Just knowing what's going to happen is going to be extreme. But the very first thing, even before he got there to meet the devil, look at verse 2. It says he fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, and he was hungered. He was starving. I can't even imagine going 4 days without food, let alone 40. So he was exhausted, he was hungry. And then, verse 3, here comes the tempter, Satan. And it says in verse 3, when the tempter came to him, he said, well, if you're the Son of God, command these stones to turn into bread. But look what Jesus said. Jesus answered him and said, it is written that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth from the mouth of God. So that kind of slowed the devil down there. But then the devil took him up into the holy city and set him up on a pinnacle in the temple. And a pinnacle is the highest point in the temple. And he said, well, okay, if you're the Son of God, then cast yourself down. For it is written, now he's using Jesus' word. For it is written that he, meaning God, shall give his angels charge concerning you. And in their hands they shall bear you up, lest you fall and dash your foot against the stone. But look what Jesus said. Again, it is written, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. So the devil took him up into an exceedingly high mountain, and he showed him all the kingdoms of the world and all the worldly goods and the glory that would be in them for him if he fell down and worshiped him. So he's telling Jesus, look at this magnificence, all the wealth of the world, all the glories of the world. I will give them to you. All you have to do is fall down and worship me. But look what Jesus said. Get thee hence, Satan. Get thee hence means get away from me, Satan. For it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. So let's look back over this. First of all, his first adversity was just fasting for 40 days and 40 nights. Surviving that was an adversity. And then he was engulfed in hunger when Satan came upon him. Confronting Satan is an adversity in itself. But not only is he confronting Satan, but look at the things that Satan's throwing before him. These are the plural adversities. These are the plural. So look at it. What did he say in verse 4? Make the stones turn into bread. And then in verse 7, he said, cast yourself down off the pinnacle. You're the Son of God. You should be able to do all this stuff. And then he showed him all the wealth in the world and how great it would be to have all of this at his feet. All you have to do is worship me, and I'll give you all this stuff. But Jesus said, no, only thy God shall I worship. Only him shall I serve. And then the devil left, and behold, the angels came and ministered unto Jesus. So that just tells you that no matter what his situation was, no matter what the scenario was, he always referred to, yes, the word of God. Nothing supersedes the words or the deeds of God. Now let's look over a couple of other ones I want to share with you. Let's stay in the book of Matthew and go over to chapter 12. And we're going to go down to verse 9. Because in this In this particular instance, Jesus was in the temple, and there was a man in the temple who had a withered hand. And withered means he only had the use of one hand. So that means that this man, that was his adversity because he only had the use of one hand. That was his adversity. But Jesus' adversity was he was going to be scolded by the Pharisees because he was going to heal this man on the Sabbath, and that was supposed to be unlawful because the Sabbath was supposed to be a day when you did absolutely nothing, nothing at all. So that was going to be another adversity for Jesus because the Pharisees, they were looking at this as an opportunity to just go against Jesus. They hated Jesus and what he stood for. Because they even said to him, the Pharisees, that is, look at verse 9. They said to him, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? They asked him that on purpose because they wanted to try to accuse him of doing something wrong on the Sabbath because you weren't supposed to do anything on the Sabbath. And healing was against, so they said, their law. So, but look what Jesus said unto them for his answer. He said, well, what man among you, if you had one sheep and it fell into a pit on the Sabbath day, would you not lay hand in there and lift it out? Would you not? Or would you? How much then is a man better than a sheep? If you were going to lift your sheep out on the Sabbath, why can't I help this man on the Sabbath? Is it lawful to do well on the Sabbath? And then Jesus said to the man, stretch forth your hand. And he stretched forth his hand, and it was restored just like the other hand. So the man's adversity was gone, taken care of. The adversity of the fact that Jesus knew how much the Pharisees hated him, and they wanted to find a reason, as to why they could say he was doing something against the law. But after he gave them that answer about, well, if you had one sheep, would you just leave him in the pit because it was the Sabbath, or would you take him out? So once Jesus responded to their question, well, there was nothing else they could say. So now let's go on. There's another instance I want you to recognize, and that is Matthew. We're going to stay in the book of Matthew. Let's go to chapter 12. We're going to stay in chapter 12, but let's go to verse 22. And verse 22, it's under the heading of the Pharisees' slander, meaning they're slandering Jesus, talking bad things about him. But let's read verse 22 and 23. Then we're going to stop and talk about that. Because there was brought unto Jesus, one man who was possessed with the devil, one who was blind, and one who was dumb. But he healed all three of them. The blind could see, the dumb spoke, and he removed the devil from the man that was possessed. Now, all the people saw this, and they were amazed. Verse 23 says, they were amazed, and they said, is this the son of David? So let's stop there for a minute. So the adversities of the people that Jesus came in contact with, the blind, the deaf, the man possessed, their adversities were all gone because Jesus healed them through his own power and ability because he was the Son of God. And that's why the people said, "Is this the Son of David?" But look what happened. In verse 24, it says, "But when the Pharisees heard this, the first thing they said is, 'Oh no, this fellow does not cast out devils except by Beelzebub.'" And who's Beelzebub? He's the prince of all devils. So that fast, that became Jesus' adversity. Because now they're saying he's from the devil. He's not the son of David. He's not the son of God. He's from the devil. So now that's Jesus' adversity, is these Pharisees that are constantly trying to turn the people against him. But look at verse 25. It says, "But Jesus knew their thoughts." He already knew what they were thinking. So he said to them, "Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation." That means it's destroyed. It's brought to desolation, and every city or house that's divided against itself shall not stand. It can't survive. And if Satan, verse 26, casts out Satan, then he's divided against himself. So how's his kingdom going to stand? Get it? They just told the people that he was from Satan. Satan is the prince of all devils. And now Jesus' response is, "Well, if I'm from Satan and I just cast out a devil, that's Satan dividing against himself. So that means he's not going to have much of a kingdom." You get it? But his solution, Jesus' solution, all his adversity is still the same, the word of God, even through the hatred of the Pharisees, even through the adversities of him, of them trying to down him in front of all the people, because they didn't want the people to see Jesus for who he was. That was taken away from them. They wanted to be in charge. They wanted the people to believe in them, not God. Now, one more I want to make you aware of. Now, remember this is the story about the woman with the issue about the blood, because she had had this issue for 12 years. And I don't know how many of you remember uh, the song by Sam Cooke that was titled "Touch the Hem of His Garment," because he was singing about this woman. There was a woman in the Bible days. She had been sick, sick so very long. When she heard about Jesus passing by, she came and joined the gathering throng. And as she was pushing her way through, somebody asked her, "What are you trying to do?" And she said, "If I could just touch the hem of his garment, I know I will be made whole." Why? Because she had that much faith and belief in Jesus that she didn't even need to have his physical touch, because she had that much faith, and that's where she was getting all her strong belief and healing from, the faith that she had in Jesus. All she had to do was touch his garment, not him, just his garment. And she knew that it would work for her. And what did we say faith was? Faith is trust. It's a strong conviction. It's a loyalty to God. And that's what she had. She knew if she could just get close enough to him, he would take care of everything she needed. After she'd been to all the doctors, nobody could help her. But all she had to do was touch the hem of his garment. So think about your own adversities, be they current or past. I mean, what was one of the hardest things you had to do or go through? Well, for one thing, if you're here today, I guess that means it was taken care of, right? So if you were here today to talk about it, that means God brought you through. So let's go. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to let me get this for you. I'm going to share me with you. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share me with you. Now, I asked you to think about your biggest adversity, but I'm going to tell you my biggest adversity. True story. You know, everything I say is true. True story. Um, and it was, oh God, years ago. I was a teenager, and it was many, many years ago. But I was in a car accident. Oh, excuse me. I was in a car accident. Um, we were on the expressway yeah, I think we were on the expressway. It was raining pretty hard, and back then, in the day, we had the front seat was all one seat, and I was in the middle. So it was the driver, it was me, and then it was another person beside me. So I was in the middle on the front seat, and there were three other people in the back. So anyway, it was raining. It was kind of hard coming down. We were going at a good clip. But the point I'm making is our vehicle skidded and we crossed over the median into the oncoming traffic. Our car turned sideways, so the oncoming traffic hit us broadside. So I passed out. I was unconscious, but I could feel myself. I could hear the police and the ambulance and all that, but they couldn't get me out. And I could remember saying, I remember this like it was yesterday. I remember saying, my foot is caught. My foot is caught. My foot had gotten jammed up under the dashboard. So that meant the jaws of life had to come out and all that stuff. Well, I guess I passed out again because I remember nothing after that. I woke up in the hospital days later because I found out they said I was in a coma for about 8 days or so. But the thing about the coma, I had an experience that you hear people talk about. You ever hear people talking about, oh yeah, I was at death's door, but I saw this bright light? It's true. It's true because it happened to me. And I did. I guess I was in the coma. But I saw this magnificent bright light, the brightest light I've ever seen in my life. Not like the lights we have. I mean, it was the brightest, but it was a soft light. It didn't hurt your eyes. You didn't squint or anything. You just looked in amazement at how beautiful this light, and it was so soft. And I could really literally see gates, big gates, but they wouldn't open. The gates wouldn't open. But then I saw a face, a very pleasant face, smiling down at me, saying, you can't come in. You have to go back. It was like the face of God just telling me, it's not your time. You got to go back. And they wouldn't open the gates for me. True story. True story. But that was while I was in the coma. So anyway, I was in traction for like 2 months, but traction was they didn't have all the good stuff they have today, equipment wise. They were just heavy weights they put on your ankles to pull your legs straight so that your pelvic ring would heal because my entire pelvic ring was shattered, my hip was broken. I was just in all kinds of pieces. But anyway, I was in traction for 2 months, and then I had to go to physical therapy in the hospital 3 days a week. And that was another 3, 4 months or so. And then I when I was in therapy 2 days a week back and forth from home, and then I finally got on the crutches and so forth and so on. But I think that vision of the heavens and the gates and the smiling face, I think I couldn't, it just put me in a different mindset, I'll put it that way, because every day after I saw that, I was always praying about getting out of this wheelchair because I had overheard them saying, meaning the doctors and nurses, I don't think she's going to be able to walk again. And when I heard that, I was like, they can't be talking about me. I can't sit in a wheelchair from now until for the rest of my life. And I think once I saw that vision, it made me start praying. It's like, oh gosh, Lord, you got to make me walk, make me get up, help me get up. And every day I got more determined and I asked, give me strength, pull me up, pull me up. I was dedicated, not only to myself, because I could feel like I heard God saying, you can do this, you can do this. And eventually I did. It took me a year or so, but I did walk. And here I am, living proof, true story as usual. When I tell you it's a true story, it's going to be a good one. And that's what it was. But you know what I realized later? I was trusting and believing, and I didn't even know it. Didn't even know it. So the same solution that they used years ago, we can still use today. You just got to do what I always say: read his word, obey his word, pray daily, and believe. So I'm going to ask you, what's the biggest adversity you had to go through? And all I'm going to say about it, you think about it, but all I'm going to say about it is, well, I don't know what it was. And I don't know how you handled it back then or whenever it was. But all I can say is now you know how to handle any new adversities that come your way. And it all goes back to the same thing: trusting and believing in the Lord and his Son, Jesus Christ. And my closing words for today are: God specializes in things that are impossible. And until next week, I'm Lilia Lewis. Thanks for joining me.